Hey, starting off, can you tell us a little bit about just how far Devin Neal has come from, week one to, I guess it's week six now, even though you guys aren't playing?
You long way, you start thinking about a young man as a true freshman. You start playing real college football snaps. I don't know how many carries he has in the year, how many reps he's taken, but you can see every game that he's kind of taken a step forward. And that's really what you would expect to see, I guess, from a lot of people, but he's really embraced being coached, right? Like he's a super coachable young man. He understands there's plenty of room for growth, and he's doing some things really well. But the fact, and it's probably really evident on film as he carries the ball, his ability to start to get north and south now, and he's running with what we call a fall forward mentality, right? And say, okay, if someone's going to tackle me, I'm going to be running through arm tackles, and that shows up on film. It showed up against a pretty good defense whatever that was last week. Yeah.
Um, I asked Lance kind of the same thing earlier, but it's been a while since you guys as a staff have lost, 4 games in a row or whatever. Do you find yourself now kind of looking back to when you went through something like that at Buffalo and kind of remembering, hey, this worked for that process or anything like that?
Well, I say this to the guys too on Mondays. I said, you could win by 100 and you could lose by 100. What you do on Sunday and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday doesn't change. The process, you can't negotiate it. You can't change it. When you're winning, you tend to smile a little bit more, but you'd be doing the same things. Okay. Like I said, if you win by 50 points, you still look there and you say, hey, here's a few of the things that we have to correct. Right. And here are the few snaps within a game that are a difference between us winning this game or losing this game. Even when you lose by a lot or win by a lot, it still boils down to a handful of snaps in a game. It really does. And it seems really, it seems not right, but it is. Like there's just a handful of snaps that it comes down to, and then everything, kind of snowballed. The next thing you know, you're down. So we just, regardless of if we win or lose, what we do on Sunday wouldn't change. You know what I mean? And what you do on Monday doesn't change with our guys. And how we do, we just approach a daily improvement. Is what we're trying to do. Do you smile a little bit more when you win? Yeah, you probably do. Right. And you got to be disciplined, and you got to, grit your teeth a little bit more probably when you have a loss or two. Okay. So, but what you do doesn't change.
You talked about previously kind of I don't know if you're tracking the my bads or the plays that you kind of need back or
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. How how do you see that coming along? I mean, were there more of those at Iowa State? Were there less of those?
Yeah, there was too many, right? As we say, I mean, there's some times that we're playing, situational football and not at the level we need to be playing it. And when things happen, when there's my bads, and I explain this to the kids, let's say there was a drop pass, a clearly drop pass. The first thing I think about is what are we going to do, or what should we have done in practice to ensure that that can happen? Did we not throw that guy enough balls? Did we not put him in that situation enough? You look at turnovers; those are the obvious my bads, right? Those are the mistakes that you want to clean up. And you look at the interception we threw in the red zone. The very first thing I think about is not the decision that he made. I say to ourselves, what did we do in practice that week to practice that in situation, that look, that scenario for him to not have to make that decision? And that, I think that's part of our growth mindset here. That's part of us being committed to the process. It's easy to point fingers. It's easy to blame. It's easy to complain. It's easy to defend, what you're doing. But if you're truly trying to get better every day, you sit there and evaluate, what am I doing as the coach and the teacher to go out there and say, hey, let's put more of these situations into practice, or let's rep this more to make sure that that stuff doesn't happen.
And I want to ask you about Trevor Wilson. He's a guy, obviously, you've been around a few
Mhm.
years now, I guess. He's really become kind of a deep threat, kind of a big play receiver for you guys. Was that always his trajectory? Was that always what you guys had hoped to get from him?
Well, he's got some juice, when he runs. And so when you have that, obviously you want to let that open up and run down the field. You saw, his ability to accelerate a little bit when he caught that bubble screen. I forget when that was, whenever he gained a first down or something like that. But yeah, you know what I mean? When you recruit fast guys, you want them to be able to play fast. And he's starting to grow and he's starting to mature as well, kind of like what we talked about with Devin. He still has his best football yet to play.
Andy, I talked to Lance about the mental break of this week. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but in terms of not preparing for a game, it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you evaluate that? Is that a good thing for you personally? Is that a good thing for your players? Do you guys need that?
Well, you kind of look into bye weeks and you can approach it a bunch of different ways. Our approach was, hey, we're still going to get better, right? So you look at what we're trying to do, on the offensive side of the ball. We say, okay, we're going to really go back and refocus on fundamentals of the game of football. the blocking, the catching, right? The string, the finish. Okay, that was the first thing. Then we're going to spend some time, as I've addressed before and talked to you about, as we come in, so late, to maybe go back and maybe start to install some things that we haven't got to yet offensively. So we're doing that. Okay. And then we get a jump start on our next opponent too, right? So you get to spend a couple extra reps doing it. But it is nice to not have to worry about, I'll say the stress of preparing for a game that's coming up, whatever 2 days from now that it would be. So you can sit there and say, hey, listen, that's okay. We don't need to worry about installing the scheme right now. Let's put a drill in to work on blocking or tackling or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Does it lighten the air a little bit, do you think?
I don't know. I wish I could say yes indefinitely to that question, but when you kind of got your head down and you're just working on getting better every day, you still feel like because we're a preparation organization. Like if we're organizing a practice, okay, we want to make sure that we got all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed. And so with that comes a lot of whatever, I guess, for lack of a better term, a lot of pretty tight deadlines, right? You got one practice, you got to get ready for the next one, right? As much as you want to prepare. So, those are the things that we enjoy to do and we love, you know what I mean? But it's not like you get to kind of come into the office and walk up and down and high five and have coffee and share donuts and play Madden and stuff like that,
Cool.
Yeah.
Being through 5 games now, knowing your personnel better than you did, when South Dakota came around earlier this year, has that changed at all? What you feel like the focus should be recruiting wise, or do you still feel the same as you did back in early September?
I think you were always evaluating week to week about what you think you need and don't, right? And honestly, based off of, how people develop or don't develop or how fast or slow it is, I think you spend time evaluating on what you do, what you think you need, and who you play against, right? Sometimes I think someone asked me last week, you go down there and you kind of see the standard for, maybe a Big 12 football team right now. You sit there and you kind of go, yeah, you do. You sit there, you look at, okay, here's what, you want to look like, right? Here's what it can be. But the kind of people that we're trying to recruit here to this place, right here at KU, that hasn't changed. I mean, we're looking for the kind of people who believe in daily improvement, right? Have that growth mindset, and that has to be part of our evaluation process.
Hey, Andy, when you're watching film, obviously the victories haven't come lately, but what makes you excited about from what you saw against South Dakota and what you saw against Iowa State? What makes you think, hey, this thing is making some progress?
Well, that's a good question. And progress can be really hard to measure because it's really easy, right, to sit there and just look at a win or a loss or a score. And one of the things I said to the offensive guys when we came in on Monday, I said, you can measure progress a lot of ways other than results. And when you look around our building and we talk about culture here, winning is not one of those things. Winning is going to be a byproduct of how we do stuff. Okay. And so one of the things that is really simple that I don't know, maybe you noticed when you watched the game or not, there was a moment in time we were in a short yard situation. We ran the ball and then it kind of got clogged up in there. And our players actually pushed the pile forward. That seems so subtle and so small, but that wasn't happening on game one. Do you know what I mean? Something simple like that, physical to strain and do that. I know it's a small moment. It's probably no one even noticed it, maybe other than myself and some of the other coaches. Okay. But it was a moment where I said, this is progress. And then for us to, for lack of a better term, kind of get shell shocked there in that first half, to come back in the second half, refocus and go out there, stop them on defense, right? I think they got a 3-and-out, and then us to go down and score on them, which to my knowledge, Daniel, right, it has happened very much. People aren't scoring on them very often in the second half. Okay. Those kind of things are progress. Now, at the end of the day, we want that progress to start to show up on the scoreboard, right, with wins and losses. But those are the things that we have to talk about when you think about getting better every day. You have to be able to point out those things that we are getting better at. Because at some point, like we talk to the kids and bam, it does show up on the scoreboard and you win those close games. And next thing you know, you're rolling. So we are progressing for sure.
And I also just wanted to ask, where do you see Jason being at just in terms of where he's at with the offense and what you're trying to implement, all those sorts of things?
Same thing, same almost exact answer with the progress, right? There's moments like, hey, we're building here. Oh, and here's something we didn't spend enough time talking about, right? And so there's hey, we learned from this. Let's move on. Now let's learn from something else, right? And that's going to come from experience and reps. It is, unfortunately, game experience is by far the best experience. And if you don't have a lot of it, you got to get it. And so unfortunately, sometimes it's going to come in the shape of a mistake or an error, right? And so, but to his credit, much like we talked about when you were asked about Devin Neal, he's being very coachable. He's like, okay, I get it. I understand now, right? Let's put you in the situation. He's going to hope, and hopefully not make those mistakes again.
Anything else, Coach K?
Appreciate y'all.